Cindy FEHRENBACH, and I've been here for 50 years. I had in first grade a sister. In second grade, I had, she's now Sister Eileen O'Connor. She was Sister Maureen at the time. I just liked her. I liked the habit. I liked the idea that I knew she lived with other sisters. She was a teacher, and all of that appealed to me. And it just kind of stayed in my head. I think they kind of went together, that I would think of being a sister and a teacher. I waited a long time. I was always very shy and afraid to take any steps. So it was into high school. It was always still in my mind, and it was time to make a decision on moving ahead. So figured that I needed to try it. It was in my head too long. And when I entered, I think there were about 9 of us. One who became my friend was from Minnesota, and she seemed to know people and the situation, and the other young women also. And I couldn't figure out how do they know each other and what's going on, until after a while I finally realized they had been together before, and living together before, because they had entered before I did, actually. People were going out on mission, and I felt like, well, maybe I need to go out on mission. So I approached the question, and I went to St. Thomas. I had not graduated yet, so that was very different. Again, moving in from being comfortable out here at that point to a whole new community again, a different experience. And then in the classroom. So that was all, rather scary, but exciting. It was exciting for me at the same time. I feel like, I'm getting old, but not old enough to not do something. And, we are about ministry and mission. So now I'm working at Brighton Family Center in Newport, Kentucky, and I'm helping in the food pantry there. And that for me feels very fulfilling. Community is like any life, it has its ups and downs, its advantages and sometimes disadvantages, but the support, I think, and the people that you meet and the sincerity of their life, it's a wonderful experience to meet these women. Their faithfulness and their love of God, their example of their living encourages, I think, and helps me to try to be a better person. It's hard to say what I like most. There are so many things. I think of the people I've lived with, the sisters who were and are my mentors, friends that I have made, opportunities that I would have never have had, in ways that I've been able to grow because of being here and the support of the congregation. It's an experience that I would never have had if I didn't say I'm going to come and try. I don't think I would have the same relationship or the same opportunities in spiritual growth that I've had. And I've been blessed in many ways, and most grateful for that. So it's 50 years, but it continues. It's still a journey.
We had been living in Delhi Hills, but then we moved out to Dry Ridge, which is where our sisters had taught for many years, and I went to school there. And I was in the 4th grade when we moved there, I was from the 4th to the 8th at St. John's. And I was taught by the sisters for 4 years. But I think what was really the most helpful for me, Sister Tarcisius taught the 1st grade. And Mary Joyce and I used to help out with grading papers or covering the classroom while she went to study for her finals in the Masters. And I knew at that time I was not going to be a teacher. It was not my vocation. Our Sister Tarcisius would talk about John Martin Moy. And basically I fell in love with John Martin Moy. I loved his thinking about providence. I loved his thinking about the sisters going out with not expecting anything in return, just trusting that God's going to take care of me. I thought that was very exciting. But being a kid of 12 or 13, what did I know about the reality of that? But it was fascinated me, and I think I fell in love with him. I mean, as a candidate, I didn't really fit in with the girls in my class. I was a fish out of water. I was from Cincinnati, and these were all girls from the neighborhood, basically, and I didn't fit. And it just made me very unhappy. And I'd gone home, on our visit in the summer, and I didn't want to come back. And Mom said, look, if you want to come home, that's fine, but you're not going to come home like this. You go back. I said, all right. And so I went back, and I stayed. And there was another sister, Renee, and I, who went to study in the sciences, which I loved. And we were sent to nursing school down in Louisville at St. Joe's Infirmary School of Nursing. I was a nurse for 40 years. I have so many special memories. I guess one that comes to mind first of all is the twins. The twins were born at home, and the family thought they were dead. And they called the funeral home, and the funeral home came and took them. But they called us frantically saying, these babies are not dead. I said, well, bring them in. And they brought them to the hospital, and I put each one in an incubator. And they were so restless all night. And I thought, they've been in the womb together for how many months? And so I put them both in the same isolette. And they calmed down, totally. And about 6 o'clock in the morning, I post-baptized them. I named them Mary and Joseph. It was a boy and a girl. And about 6 o'clock in the morning, Joseph puts his arm over and looks at Mary as if to say, are you ready? And they both died at the same moment. I swear, they both died at the same moment. I found that many times in my life, that if there were difficulty, he had already told me how to deal with it. So trust providence. Religious life is very exciting. One of my co-workers, when I was working at hospice, a big Sandy, she said, yeah, enter the convent and see the world. Because I had just returned from China, and I was going to be going to France for my 25th anniversary, and she was kind of jealous because she never got to do that. And so I would say it's exciting, it's fulfilling. I renew my vows every morning, and that's probably what had kept me going all these years. So, trust providence.
I'm Sister Mary Joyce MOELLER. I went through grade school with C.D. Peace, and I just loved them. They were so cheerful and happy and helpful and kind, and so I wanted to be like them. And of course, as I got older, I thought of marriage and children, but I don't know, my thinking, my prayer, my thoughts, my heart always came back to wanting to be a sister. And my heart was just saying, I want to love God like that, and I want to love God more, and I want to be able to help other people, to share that love with others. And so finally, when it came to being really serious about what community, I just had to come to the City Peace. So I did, and have not regretted it at all. I taught in high school, junior high, for a number of years, about 10 years or so, teaching history, government, literature, English, and a variety of other classes that had no teacher, so I just filled in. In the early 70s, there were many different social justice organizations that were getting organized. When I got to Maryland, I was able to be a coordinator for the district for Network, and working with the Perry Social Justice Committee, we did some outreach in Washington, D.C., and I participated in civil disobedience actions there. And so my heart was really moved to get more engaged in that kind of work. And I ended up then being the only sister with this team made up of Black men and women that they had educated. And being trained in the methods of community organizing, I got them to talk about their needs and their wants, and then how they could strategize to speak to officials to redress their grievances. When our community decided to send some sisters to West Africa, I was approached, and so there I went. And I was amazed because the culture, the Black culture that I experienced in rural West Tennessee, when I went to the rural area in Ghana, it was like people even spoke the same way. They, if they knew English, the manner of speaking, their values, their priorities. The young women that came to us were the first in their families to receive an education, because women were not expected to be intelligent. They were not expected to make any decisions. I was there in West Africa for 11 years. And we had to leave because for lack of other sisters to come, and we had to turn the school over. But I want to say that the school is still progressing, and there's like about 1,000 young women there from all over Ghana there. When I lived with sisters in other environments from other congregations, when we shared our charism, let me tell you, you see the beauty of your own charism in the light of someone else's charism, and you could share that. So that was a wonderful experience also. So I'm really, really grateful for that opportunity. I want to express gratitude to the community for accepting me, for challenging me, for educating me, and allowing me to take risk, and allowing me to go off on my own, because that's where I felt Providence was calling me. I just can't look at an issue that's affecting people's lives, whether it's healthcare or housing or just wage or immigrant rights or anything, without doing something. And some people say, how can you continue to do this? And I think part of me is part of who I am, but it's also part of our charism, to be Providence, to offer that hope to others, and to trust, to take risks and trust that somehow, it might take a long time, but something will work out. And the favorite quote that I shared from John Martin Moy is, "In God alone is my hope." And God alone is my hope. And that inspires me and keeps me going every day. So I'm just very grateful. And I can't believe that all these years have passed. And who knows what is to come, but I trust they will be good years.
I was the last of 8 children. 3 of the others, 2 girls and a little boy, died very young, some years before I was born. So I grew up with 4 brothers. We lived next door to the Sisters of Divine Providence in Dayton, Kentucky. From our house and yard, we could hear them laugh and pray. We chatted with them through their laundry window. Many summer evenings found my 2 brothers and me visiting on their back porch during their evening recreation. It was during these years that I first said that someday I too would be a sister. However, it was only after high school and working 6 years that I finally left home and joined the CDPs. During those 6 years, there was a continual nagging inside me that wanted something more than the world was offering. It was that desire for a closer relationship with God that I was seeking and responded to on September 8, 1950. Community is important to me. I like the way Joseph Garzone describes community in his book, Never Alone. Perhaps somewhat idealistically, he describes it as a place where we find support, are affirmed, where we work together in spreading joyfully the good news of Jesus. A place where freedom as God's children can be found. For me, prayer is most important. Contemplative prayer readies me for the day ahead. Without this early morning time of quiet prayer, I flounder, am less patient, am less aware of the needs of others. Prayer gives me the impetus and strength to meet the challenges and demands that await me during the day. Scripture is the basis for my prayer, and the Stations of the Cross are one of my favorite means of contemplation. I also love. As local animator at Holy Family Home for 3 years, I got to know the sisters as the prayerful, beautiful people they are. I consider it a real gift that God chose me to lead our older sisters into the new millennium. I will always cherish the memory of the beautiful chapel celebration that closed the 20th century and ushered in the Jubilee year and the new millennium. At this Jubilee of religious life, it seems my life has come full circle. I entered St. Anne Convent in September 1950. I knew God wanted something more from me. Together with my friend, Sister MARILENE Birch, I left my family, my work, and the parish where I was actively involved to enter St. Anne. Most of my ministries over these years have carried heavy responsibilities and pressures, both in education and in administrative work. Now, in the evening of my life, I no longer welcome big responsibilities. With my retirement, I enjoy a new freedom that enables me to relax and to enjoy life and people in a new and unhurried way.
At the age of 6 years of age, and even as I got older, I that was one thing in my mind, that I wanted to be a sister. I was 14 when I entered. I always said to even the candidates, "You call this discipline here?" I said, "You should have lived in my house." I said, "My mother was more strict than they are here," which she had to be. I was a rascal. And my whole experience with teaching was that of getting the job done, doing it well. I enjoyed teaching them. I had given them a composition to write, and I forget what the topic was, but after they got finished with their copies, they put it on my desk, and I read through them that night. And the next day I got class with the boys, and I told them, I gave them their papers back, but I didn't give this one boy's paper back. And I said, Daryl, will you come up here, please? So he came up to my desk. In those days, we still had platforms. And I said, Daryl, what is this? And I held up the paper that he was he had written on. And he just looked at me, and I said, Daryl, what is this? And I thought, well, he's not answering. So I asked him a third time, Daryl, what is this? Garbage was his response. The whole class roaring with laughter. Sister Erica Kosmanek, she said to me one day, well, you would really be a good missionary to Africa. And I was excited about it to the extent that it was going to be an opening of relating to another culture. Some of the other things that I really liked about being with them was that I could get engaged with them in their cultural celebrations and things. And that to me was a thrill for me, actually. Many people are responsible for leading me to religious life, more specifically to the Congregation of Divine Providence. My mother has a great influence upon my decision to enter a congregation committed to providence. Her attitude about events and life was always one of recognizing the will of God or recognizing God's providence, whether good or bad or not so good in daily events. The religious women who taught me were definitely an inspiration to me toward seeking a way of life which was called for dedication and giving. We are companions on a journey. That is the song I would want them to sing with me.
Looking backwards, I am convinced that the providence of God definitely led me through my entire life. Being born, my mother dying, then we went to the orphanage for 5 years, and we came home and had a stepmother. And then I met the CDPs, and this was like, this is it. My dad said, you always wanted to be a doctor. I said, yes, I know, but now I'm not going to be one. I mean, it was just like that. The sister who was running our hospital did have a degree in hospital administration, but she was leaving the congregation. They had put me on the board, so I'd been to a few meetings, and they said to me, well, you know a little bit about the hospital. Well, it was a little bit. So they sent me to the hospital to run the hospital. So I was sitting at my desk one day, and I said, well, you're here, therefore, you must be able to figure out how to run a hospital, or you wouldn't be here. So that's what I did for 6 years. A good hospital, ran a good hospital. We were the only hospital that would take women that couldn't pay. And we got a doctor for OB, and she was wonderful. She put $6 million in the bank and said if they wanted to go to college, because they're mostly all poor people, she would pay for their tuition. From the hospital, Joe Marie was elected provincial, and I was elected one of the counselors. So that's how I left the hospital. And so I worked on the council for 6 years. Well, I got a license to become a mental health counselor. And I worked in Ohio. Then I worked down in London, Kentucky, worked for the Diocese of Lexington, and counseled all the women down there in eastern Kentucky. And I mean, they suffer enormously from their husbands. It was pitiful. I went to Moy Center. 10 years there, that was very good. The people that came to the retreat center, they all were greatly impressed. When I left, we had 8,000 guests that year. I feel like I did a lot of good there. Providence has led me. So every day I believe that I do whatever I do because that's what Providence wants on that particular day. And God, even if you don't believe it yet, I believe specifically guides each person in the path that God wants them to follow. I say God gets you wherever God wants you. Whatever he has to go through to get you there, he goes through. And that, I look at my life and I said, how did I get from here to here to here to here? Because that's where God wanted me. I'm aware now that Providence has taken good care of me. Providence is my life.
Before a word is exchanged, the sparkle in her eyes and her soft demeanor tell you that here is a joyful, gentle woman. 70 years as a Sister of Divine Providence wear well on Sister Eileen Birch. Very well. A local girl whose parents hailed from Cold Spring and Alexandria, Kentucky, Sister Eileen is one of 5 children from a church-going family, which, she declares, went to every service that was held. She credits the devout atmosphere of her upbringing with fostering her vocation to religious life. She heard God's invitation by the time she was a junior at ANDP in Newport, but waited until senior year to let her parents know. They asked her to think some more about it while spending some time in business, and she agreed. A family friend offered to interview her for an open spot at his company. She got the position. Even so, Providence has its ways. Eileen also joined the drama club at St. Joseph Church in Cold Spring, where she became best friends with another CDP-to-be, Martha Ellen Cheevers. Conversations between Eileen and Marty eventually led to Eileen's disclosure that she was thinking about becoming a sister. Happy surprise, she relates. It turned out that Marty was also thinking about the very same thing. From then on, there was no stopping either of them. After visiting several orders of sisters, they both separately chose the Sisters of Divine Providence. Another happy surprise. After professing first vows in August 1952, Sister Eileen was missioned to teach the first grade at Christ the King School in Lexington. There, her love for the little ones was set aflame, a fire that never left her, despite eventually being sent on 2 occasions to her old high school in Newport, where she taught several subjects that were part of the business curriculum, as well as religion and English. Her second placement at ANDP, now known as Our Lady of Providence, from 1970 to 1983, left Sister Eileen feeling that the Academy was truly her home. Its closure in 1983 was very difficult for Sister Eileen, and she made a private retreat afterward. Again discerning a call to teach young children, she was missioned to St. Camillus Academy in Corbin, Kentucky. Sister Eileen enthusiastically speaks about her memorable and wonderful experience in Corbin, its community of 14 sisters and 30 boarders, its home-like atmosphere, and the opportunity to get to know and have relationships with the people of the area. Sister Juanita Naticksburn was also assigned there during this time. A down-to-earth kind of person that Sister Eileen credits with having a significant influence on her as a fellow teacher and spiritual friend. We asked this woman who has served the Lord faithfully and joyfully as a consecrated religious for 70 years what piece of wisdom she would like to share with a young sister today. Her response was unhesitating. Always be gentle. Don't ever become so involved with other things that you can't take the time to be gentle with others? Does she have a particularly dear fundamental virtue? Just be gentle, she responds. Perhaps that is, after all, what those 4 fundamental virtues are designed to do for a sister after 70 years of their practice. Bring a sparkle to her eyes and a softness to her demeanor that telegraphs to others a simple message. Here is a joyful, gentle woman, a presence of divine providence in and for the world.
And this is Sister Rosemary RIZZO. I made my first profession 1947. So this year, it's my 75th Jubilee. In the first grade, I went to school, and that's the first sister I saw. Next year, she was my first grade teacher, 56 kids in one classroom. Oh, my mom always talked about it, that she wanted to be a sister. And when she was 14, she had to go to work for the family. And I got introduced to Mother Celeste Marie. She showed me around a little bit. And she gave me papers, an envelope to enter. Yeah, it was really exciting getting started, getting acquainted with the other girls. It was all exciting. 40 years in the classroom. First through, I had a little short time in the 9th grade. It was tough work, but I had a tough childhood, taking care of all my brothers, and that prepared me. And I loved teaching. I was 40 years out there. Started out in Dayton and went to Dry Ridge and after that I can't keep up with them. The community in Winchester was the nearest I ever got to a really supportive set of sisters. It was a deeply, deeply satisfying community. There was real community life there, real community sharing. It was beautiful. It's become very, very clear to me these past couple of years that yes, Jesus was always there helping me every step of the way. And he is now here much more conscious to me every step of the way. We've got everything our heart could desire. Everything's clean, cared for, our food. Anything goes wrong, you just tell the folks and they'll take care of it. Either the guys or the gals who are around helping, you know. It's just amazing. We've got everything we could possibly want. Well, anything I could possibly want. And it's been a wonderful life all these years.